Today we have assembled here for an endowment lecture on a very interesting and contemporary topic, Kautilya's laws of governance, and we have got a very great authority and a competent person to talk on this subject, Major General Dr. MURALI GOPALAKRISHNAN. Our hearty welcome to Dr. Gopalakrishnan and his wife. Before our Secretary Dr. Sita Sundarram introduces to the audience, I think we should all give him a big hand because he had a great role in Kargil war against Pakistan. And today's lecture is being arranged by the Kuppuswamy Sastri and the Sanskrit Academy under three different endowments. One is NAVALPAKKAM, MIMISAL, NARASIMHA PATRACHARIAR and Justice RAJAGOPALA AYYANGAR. Both endowments were made by Sri R. Raghunathan, former Chief Secretary of Maharashtra, IYER, and also Secretary of Government of India. He and his wife, whom we call Mami, Shyamala Mami, were very closely associated with us. In fact, they did a lot of physical work also in the library, forgetting that he was a great administrator, held very high positions. And he instituted these two endowments. NAVALPAKKAM, MIMISAL, Narasimha Patrachar was his great-grandfather, who hailed from the family of the NAVALPAKKAM Kumar Tatacharya lineage, and he himself was a very great Shastrajna. And Justice N. Rajagopala Iyengar was his father-in-law. He was a judge in the Madras High Court. Later on he moved to Supreme Court. He was the judge in Supreme Court. He was a very well-known and highly respected judge. And we have been conducting lectures under these endowments, either on Mimamsa or on law and jurisprudence. And Madam Sita Sundarraman and her husband Sri Sundarraman introduced Major MURALI GOPALAKRISHNAN to us, so we seized the opportunity to invite him to give a lecture on Kautilya's Arthashastra. He has done PhD on this subject. And another endowment in the Sanskrit Academy is Chief Justice S. Ramachandra Iyer, who was the judge in Madras High Court, Chief Justice of Madras High Court. Under these endowments, we are going to have this lecture today, and I welcome all of you on this occasion. Our respectful welcome to respected Sri T.S.K. Sir, T.S. Krishnamurthy, former Chief Election Commissioner, who was our president at the Institute, who guided us for many years in all our activities. Hearty welcome to you, sir. And once again, I welcome all of you, and I now request our Secretary, Dr. Sita Sundaram ma'am, to introduce today's speaker.
Namaste. I have great pleasure in introducing our speaker for today, Major General MURALI GOPALAKRISHNAN. He was commissioned into Artillery Regiment of the Indian Army at a very young age of 20. Over a span of 38 years in the Army, he gained experience and competence in operationalizing artillery guns and ammunition, including instructional skills to teach officers and men operational logistics and information operations in an insurgency-affected region. His experience include combat duty at Operation Meghdut in Siachen, operations in Kargil and Parakram, planning and implementing operational logistics for a corps-size force and training officers and men in field gunnery, skill development and military leadership. As a project manager of battlefield surveillance system, he finalized the design including integration of battlefield surveillance systems, benchmarked at the product cost. He was chief instructor in the Officers Training Academy and chief instructor in School of Artillery. He has authored 2 books on military history and military studies for senior secondary school as part of NIOS syllabus. He completed his PhD in KAUŠILYA'S Arthashastra post-retirement. Now he has taken up Kainkaryam to the Kanchi Shankaramadam and administers an old age home at Kalavai as post-retirement activities. Over to Major General MURALI GOPALAKRISHNAN.
A kind request, please make your phone in the silent mode. Thank you.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. My salutations to Kuppuswamy Shastri Research Institute, which I consider as a temple of learning. My profound thanks to Sanskrit Kannan Dr. Balasubramaniam, Sita Sundaram, and the entire faculty and staff of KSRI. I have made use of KSRI while I was doing this research on Arthashastra, especially with the library. My wife did Sanskrit in the Sanskrit college here. The basis or the background of the talk, I owe it to Mr. Sundaram. When I shared my happiness of concluding my thesis and getting awarded the doctor's degree, he in his nonchalant way asked me, "Why don't you give a talk?" I said, "Fine, no problem." When I came here to meet Dr. Balasubramaniam, he said, "Can you talk something of law?" I really thought for a while, because the subject of Arthashastra, I approached it from the point of view of developing the national security strategy, which has got very many aspects, including law, because everything concerning governance is a very important part of a nation's security strategy. So, thank you, sir, for this opportunity. And there are 2 aspects which you have to consider while I am giving the talk. One is this camera which is going live, and I do not know what is the expectation levels, but I do consider this as a mountain of expectation, something like Kargil, where we had to climb mountains and capture it. And of course, the timing of the day where you should not go to sleep, right? Whatever. So, I will structure my talk on 2 parts basically. One is to, what Mr. Sundaram told me, that why don't you talk on your subject, which is the how to derive the national security strategy. And the second part is what leads you to make and form laws for a society. What is the necessity? This necessity, of course, has been given from the Manusmriti to Dharmashastra and all those things. But there is a linkage of the past which needs to be addressed. And lastly, my pranams to all the elders here. I seek your blessings always. I am bound by this podium because of the camera. So I generally don't use the podium. Nevertheless, Kautilya's laws of governance, Kautilya starts his Arthashastra with this homage which he says in the right in the beginning. It's like putting a Vinayagar Churi right before you start anything. Namashukra Brahaspati Bhyam. This particular phrase or this homage that he pays to both Shukra, who is also called Ausanas, and Brahaspati, who is linked to Bharaspatyam, both talks of Shastras, which is Niti Shastra, the way of life. So, as I started searching for the reason why he started the Arthashastra with this, was maybe threefold. One is paying homage, that the second is, of course, my Kautilya's Arthashastra is not a new saying or what I have written, it is based on the past. What is given in all the Shastras and it is a deduction from all those with what is relevant for his time, which is the Chandragupta Maurya's time of 3rd or 4th century BC. The other aspect is when he discusses some topics in the Arthashastra, he debates the logic of it. So, on this particular thing about Ausana Shastra or Shukra Niti Shastra and Bharaspatyam, they both differ on many issues, on the way of life and how the life is to be controlled, etc. So, one particular aspect is what I have written on the left is the 4 sciences which Kautilya says these are the 4 sciences which must be learnt and experienced and implemented. Anvikshiki is science of logic in a simple term. The Trai, which is the 3 Vedas. Varta is the activity which gives you vritti or artha. And Dandaniti is there because humans cannot be controlled without a danda. Because of the various reasons of, lust, greed, it's there inborn in everybody. So, in this, this is what he says. Manusmriti says there are only 3 laws of science, which is the Trai, the triple Vedas, the Varta, which is the activity, and Dandaniti or the laws of governance. Ausana says there is only one. That is, laws of governance is enough to learn because it contains everything. And similarly, the Bharaspatyam says there are 2 laws only. So he debates this in the Arthashastra and says, no, I do not agree with this. As far as I am concerned, these are the 4. It's, I think, some simple logic one can say that you learn physics. Physics is composed of so many things. You bifurcate the physics into various subjects, you will learn more on each of them. So perhaps that could have been the logic when he says these 4 sciences has to be learnt. The king must be aware of this and he must govern with these 4. And for him, knowledge is the most important aspect which everybody must learn, which I'll come in the end in my last slide. These are a few acknowledgements of Western authors who acknowledge and consider it as a classic, not only of its time, but for times immemorial. You know, Weber, Hilbrand, Zimmer, Kangle. In fact, Weber is the Weberian system of democracy, which which we all follow, where it only says that yes, a group of people elect a leader, and whatever the leader frames in terms of rules and regulations, the people will follow. In a simple term, that's the Weberian approach to the whole process of life. I mentioned about Anvikshiki. For him, it is philosophy of Sankhya, Yoga, and Lokayata. Lokayata, is what the Bharaspatyam mentions, which is of Charvaka philosophy, where they do not believe in Vedas, but they believe in what they perceive with their 5 senses. So this is a practical aspect of it. Kautilya was pragmatic in his approach to life. Just a brief about what the Arthashastra is all about. 6,000 verses can be debated to say it could be plus minus something based on the meter and the composition, etc. It also has Chanakya Niti and Chanakya Sutras. Some of the literature which I consulted for doing my study, of course, the first one is the most important, the text and commentaries, where translations are considered as the most authentic and acceptable by the entire the world. Indian history, of course, was needed as an adjunct to it. Contemporary authors on the subject of governance plus the aspect of international security studies and international relations. How they correlate, how I can transpose, is there any homological link between Arthashastra and today's theories on international relations plus how you approach your, the entire managing the society. Just a brief correlation where one has to, in this particular thesis, one has to establish a homology, structural homology between the two periods of time and what was mentioned then and what is there, because political science as a subject, this is part of the political science, the jargons have to match. So we talk of 4th century BC and the present nation, which I took as 2020, we still have the same system going, right? We have democracy added to it. But what was common between the two for the purpose of national security strategy is a state of anarchy. Humankind started fighting as soon as we formed small groups, villages became big. The reasons to fight was different. The reasons to fight remains more or less the same, but we will continue to fight each other, and this is not a thing which is going to stop now, it will continue forever. And the political anthropology, as I had mentioned earlier, was linked to the social contract theory, which linked both Kautilya's sayings as well as what was given by Weber and what is followed. And in his concept, he wanted to eliminate Matsya Nyaya, equality in law. State and society he needed a structure of the state, and the society had to be role-based society. And of course, governance is the most important aspect, ethical and efficient governance. This is a bit maybe look very cluttered. There are two important doctrines which Kautilya talks about. One is the Saptanga doctrine, where he says that the constituent elements of the state, the Swami, Amatya, Jana, Pada, Durga, Kosha, Danda, Mitrani, Prakrityaha, all these 7 factors constitute the national power or the power of the kingdom. Anything going bad in each or any of them is going to bring the kingdom down. All these 7 elements, or 6 important elements, Ali is the last one, has to be at the peak. Now, it is not just listing. There are 2 aspects to this listing. The king comes foremost. He is the primacy in the society. Everything starts and stops with the king. He has got to be strong. Then in the order of precedence of the society, the ministers, and then you have the territory, which is Janapada, the fort, which is which is the capital city and which has got to be protected. All treasury comes into the Kosh, into the fort, treasury and the army. The second aspect is interdependency of these elements. The king cannot rule without a minister. Similarly, there can be no army without a treasury. So, the economic wealth of a kingdom or a nation takes a priority in your approach to things. You want a strong kingdom, all these 6 aspects have got to be strong. Territory, he does, I'll come to it a little later, on expansion of territory. As larger the kingdom, larger is the produce and larger is the wealth. But there is a caveat to this thought process of his. Sorry. So in this, when you talk of security, the question arises, security for whom or for what? So security is usually understood as territory. The territorial integrity of the nation is the aspect of security. No, that's not right. It is the people who constitute the nation also have got an equal right into the protection and the security aspect of it. That is what has been proved by modern theories. When you look at the theories on the right I have written, these are all modern 19th century thought process. The traditional theory of realism, which says territory, army, power is what is all needed. We will worry about the people a little later. Where the critical security studies done say that people have to be protected, their security gets importance. Then he gave the concept of national power, which is a sum of elements of all the 6 elements that I have listed. The same thing is talked about in today's modern theories of the concept of comprehensive national power. Is a term which you may have come across. So in this, the raison is the national interest. Anything you do for the interests of the nation, interests of the kingdom, is dharmic in its form. You are permitted to wage a war against somebody if that nation is acting against the interests of your country. And then, of course, he defines power is just not material wealth, it's also the intellectual capability of the king, the ministers, and how they orchestrate their mental mobility in getting what they want. Strong treasury, army, valor, and energy. The king has to be very, very energetic in nature. He also says the king must get up at 4:30 in the morning, he must do this, X, Y, Z. All that is listed out. So in that, the relative power of a kingdom is like a sine curve. You are not strong always. At some point of time, you will come down, your power will go down, and then you will climb up. So you have to orchestrate, change your approach when you are weak in every sense. If you are strong, you can do what you want. That's what the balance of power theory talks about. There is also something called the balance of threat, which I will not talk about it now. The second important doctrine is the Shadgunya doctrine, which is the 6-fold foreign policy. It's a dynamic foreign policy which a kingdom had to adopt based on its relative strength, based on its situation, what it was facing. So, similar to the theories which have been propounded in modern times, the international relation theory. So, that's where the correlation happens. Mandala theory, you would have known about it, that when they say my neighbor is my enemy and my neighbor's neighbor is my friend. You see it playing even now with India. Pakistan, China, enemies. We are friendly with Korea, Japan, and Afghanistan, Iran. Right? So it's a part of a strategy. So it is a continuation of our old thought process which is playing out now without anybody saying that yes, I am following Kautilya, maybe for whatever reason. And of course, Chaturupayas, you all would have been aware of. This is perhaps the only method of dealing with people, dealing with nations. Anything happens between two individuals, you first try and reconcile. There is a reconciliation, the conciliatory method. If it doesn't work out, you try something else, right? And the last is the use of force. This is what is said in the foreign policy also. War is the last resort. This is also a sutra given in Chanakya Sutra, where a king who had newly conquered a territory was advised to show the same devotion as the local people towards their gods and to participate in their festivals. Now, this is the start of pluralism in India. This is mentioned in Manusmriti and Dharmashastra also. Respect all belief systems. So, if you go and conquer a territory, do not try and impose and say the rest of the thing is wrong, because you will immediately, make enemies within that nation or the kingdom. This is where the conflict of interest comes in when you talk of the Uniform Civil Code. Uniform Civil Code is required based on pragmatism of Kautilya, or it goes to the dharmic pluralism of Dharmashastra. So, just a brief word about Artha, Vritti and Varta. Artha is, Sanskrit is such a beautiful language, it's got 10 meanings to every word. Put it in the context to explain something. Artha is wealth. In this, Artha can also be earth. And the Trivarga philosophy is of which it is based upon, as far as the Arthashastra is concerned. I need wealth, I have desires, but I have to follow Dharma. So, I need to secure my wealth. My wealth is my property in simple terms. Can the government protect my property? Can the government protect my belief system? Vritti is the means. How do I subsist and how do I sustain myself? A matter of livelihood. Varta is the activity which produces the wealth. So, ultimately, Arthashastra, Kautilya, or you call him Vishnugupta, wanted Yoga Kshemam. Yoga Kshemam within the kingdom. He is not talking of Vasudeva Kutumbakam, in which acquisition, Rakshana and Palana. Acquisition is acquisition of territory and how to create more wealth. Rakshana is security, protect my kingdom, territorial integrity as well as my people. Palana is to maintain the kingdom, maintain the belief systems. How do I administer myself to do this particular aspect? These are the king's three primary duties. There is another saying which I have written here, Praja Sukhe Sukham Ragyah Prajanam Cha Hite Hitam Natma Priyam Hitam Ragyah Prajanam Tu Priyam Hitam. Basically what it says is, what the people want is what the king wants, has to want. Natma Priyam Hitam means that if the king desires something, he cannot have it. He can have it provided the Praja wants it. So everything was rotating and revolving back to the Praja. So that was the type of dedication a leader was required to have. If Arthashastra was to be said in one slide, I tried to make this slide. Political unification was the national objective of Kautilya. You have heard the story of Nandas being ousted and Chandragupta Maurya being brought in, and acquisition of territory and empire. He wanted him to become a Chakravartin, which in those times defined by the space, the area of a kingdom. It had two components, territory and Trivarga philosophy. On the right is all the aspect of the people. On the Trivarga philosophies, you have the three pillars of human existence. You can add the word moksha to this, dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Moksha then becomes the Chaturvarga Purushartham. Kautilya used this word moksha as a factor of motivation. He said, I don't need moksha to make the Arthashastra. I need only these three in the back of my mind. When you want to have Yoga Kshema, he was perhaps the first one to propagate a welfare state. Because everybody, king, ministers, everybody is talking about the people all the time, thinking about the people. It means they are always doing something for the people. On the left you find what is called Bhumi Samdhi, or the territory aspect of it. Kautilya wanted to expand the territory, which is often misquoted as saying he was a realist and he wanted to keep expanding his territory. No. He defined the empire. To the north was the Himalayas, to the west was the Hindu Kush, and to the south was both the seas, the peninsular India. He says, this is what your kingdom is going to be. And the logic he gave is, do not capture or try to control people who you cannot control. For example, if he said go and capture China or Mongolia, it was impossible for a king sitting in Patliputra to control Mongolia, right? Because you have to bring in your king's edicts into place, right? So that was the terms of reference given to Chandragupta Maurya. And in that, at that point of time, it was a small kingdom of the Nandas, not the huge one that we know in the maps. So that's how the mandala theory came up, that you have to expand all directions. So people in the rear, people in the front, people in the right, etc. Both the territory as well as the people constituted the word security. I need to make sure that the nation or the kingdom is secure based on these two aspects. To have the security, I need an ideal state. It was not really an ideal state, it was actually a state which is already existing, which will be based on the principles of dharma, rule-based society and the role-based society. The role-based society is often also misquoted. And of course, samskara was important to be followed. The king had only 3 duties that I had mentioned, Rakshana, Palana and Yogakshema as the ultimate objective. So this is what the Arthashastra covers in its entirety. People always say, you can get to hear, oh, Arthashastra, it is about economics, right? So that's the perception which is there. It's not about economics, it is 160 subjects. You name it, everything is there. Visa system was there, passport system was there, and the taxation, what should be the method of taxation, what should be the punishment, spice, how the 4 elements of the military was to be organized, located. If you have elephants, what will be the distance between the 2 elephants or the 100 elephants which have been put in a place? So much in detail. You can't do it if you want to sit and do it now. One other challenge in my thesis was how to define national security strategy. There is no classical universal definition. So this is what I tried to do it. The ones in the red are the operative words, that it's a science of skillful use, and it's a combination of diplomacy, economic and information powers and its armed forces. And it is both during peace and war, which means it is in continuum. It doesn't start and it doesn't end. So when you formulate a national security strategy, you need some vision for the country, based on which you can write the national security strategy. There is also a debate that why are we not writing it, but we are implementing or taking actions without writing it. The US writes every year based on what the president says. So the 3 important vision that I could formulate based on the thesis was rebuild a society. You may question, you may say, why rebuild? So society has got frictions. Society right now has got falciparuous tendencies, exploitable tendencies from outside elements as well as inside elements. So that creates a gap where people from outside can exploit and weaken the society and the nation as such. How do you do it is the strategy. But everything is given in the Constitution of India. You follow that, you will be safe and you will be able to do it. An economy, as I said, is what is important. Whether you say 5 trillion economy is, right, or it is not enough, because when you look at it as the purchasing power parity, we are not anywhere near the other European nations. right? So that could be a point of argument. The last one is the net provider. Net provider in security terms or terminology is, I will provide the needed security for you, whether it is hardware based, which is military based, or non-traditional security threats. For example, Pacific Island nations, their security is to protect their fisheries, their island territories from tsunami. These are the important security aspects of those nations. I will help you, I will protect you. That's how we have formulated the Indian Ocean doctrine, starting from Sagar to Sagarmala to Mahasagar. Our reach in the Indian Ocean or the Indo-Pacific region starts from immediate coastal belt of India, extending up to Seychelles, to the east coast of Africa, and all the way up to the South China Sea. For that, you need to develop your economy much more and be capable of reaching out. Again, this is one particular drawing to talk about the national security strategy. You see the circle enclosed. A secure nation is inside the circle. The circle denotes infinity or continuum. It does not end. It always is, a process which needs to be ensured. The 4 pillars to secure a nation are the economy, governance, secularism, and pluralism. Secularism is a word which is again, wrongly used, but we find it mentioned because of import of many religions post the Arthashastras period. Because that the only religion perhaps he took cognizance of was Buddhism. So we needed a political order, we need social order. In simple terms, political order means we need political maturity of the political elite. The politicians have to display more maturity. A leader is there who needs to be strong, who needs to be decisive, who can take risks, and he thinks about the people all the time. That is the type of leader we want everywhere. Okay, so coming back to the part 2 of my talk, when I have to talk about the laws of governance, we must first understand what is the Kautilyan state as he had thought about. Economy is the basis of state capacity. The ruler has to be wise, pragmatic, and forceful. Irrational and arbitrary use of state power leads to the rebellion of the people. So important that the justice system has got to be very, very ensuring equanimity. Weak and passive state leads to social and political anarchy, which you can find very many examples within our country today and also in many other nations. Same thing he quotes in a sutra as Kshayasthana Vriddhiritya Udayastasya. Deterioration, stagnation, and progress are the 3 aspects of position. Position means what is the state of the kingdom or the nation today. Is it in the ascendancy? Is it going down, or it is like a plateau? Often there are debates on, is US losing its hold? Is Europe stagnating where it was? Is India rising? So these are the aspects when you look at which is related to this saying. What is the social foundation of the Kautilyan state? Adhere to dharma. And people have to follow a rule-based society, which means essentially the rules can be made, but it has to be enforced. That is where we are lacking today on many aspects. Emphasis on strict following of the 4 stages of life: adolescence, family, contemplation on begetting a grandchild, and detachment from worldly affairs. We are trying to do that, grahasthashram and trying to detach, etc. That's depending on the age group, but everybody was told and this was implemented. This is the stages of life you have to go through. And in each stage you have a role to perform. The Varna system is another thing which is often misquoted and used, especially by the opposition and things like that, who are, want to talk about it. I will simply say, yes, you all know about it. I don't have to explain this to you. It's like a company which has got, different hierarchical levels based on the capabilities. It was on that. If you have divided the nation as a company structure and everybody is performing their own duties, without worry, then the things have to prosper. There is no other way out of it. It will not stagnate anywhere. Then I'll try to say what is the necessity of this laws. When we have the objective as Yoga Kshemam and the three aspects of the king, what is more important is the social order, in which the ethical and efficient governance comes into play. Ethical means non-corrupt, in simple terms, and a rule-based order. We are not even able to enforce a traffic light properly. We need a lot of resources to do it, but we are not applying our mind to do it. The polity is not in consonance to get these things done. I'll give you a small example of a movie called The Gangs of New York, which had come in the 1960s. The entire Congress and the Senate of the US got together to say we have to put an end to this New York problem, where the gangs are roaming around completely without anybody to stop them. So the Congress and the Senate came together to formulate rules, regulations, laws, and enforce the police with the authority to stop it. So it's a collective body of the politicians who decided on it and got it implemented. Similarly, the roads in the US, I believe the system was that for 3 years, reduce the defense budget. Redeploy this money into roads. That's how you have the system of roads in the US. So you need some such, dynamic thinking and dynamic acceptance by the ruling class. And I said, Kautilya understood human nature so well that everything that he does is based on that. The similarity is, I would say, is Nirmala Sitharaman, when she puts a tax, she is looking at somebody who should not escape the taxation, not facilitating this taxpayer, right? So that's just a part that may not be true in all its sense, but that's the sort of a perception. The political world is anarchical and insecure in the prevalence of Matsya. So, 7 threats are common to all human beings: hunger, poverty, health, environment, community, and politics. You have to address all these issues if you want to make a secure nation. And of course, he also says, which I am sure everybody agrees, that the lack of proper penal code enhances unlawful activities in the state. You don't wait for a while. If there is no law, then you can go with impunity. We often see Westerners coming here driving without helmets because there is no implementation of helmets and there is some vague rules of wearing a helmet, right? A modern correlation. What are the principles of law? Swadharma and Rajadharma. Swadharma basically talks about the role-based society and you have to follow certain rules. Rajadharma is what the king is supposed to be doing, which he has listed out all his activities. All aspects of law has to be based on dharma. it is evidential based. There is a method of evidence to be recorded and, how it is to be applied by the judiciary. Customs have to be respected. We have seen recent cases of customary violations of, lighting a lamp in the hills and somebody objecting to it, and how the DC of that place reacted. So, these are all things which keep playing out in any society all the time. And the royal edicts were the final authority. Everybody had to follow it. So, this is where he says that if the king follows it, that's his motivation that he is given, that you will be the Chakravartin. And then he also lays down certain, qualifications. A disagreement between custom and dharma shastras, or between evidence and the shastras, the matter will be decided in accordance with the dharma. There could be, you could have cases on which you can study this particular aspect. You will find a congruence of such an application even today. So maybe the people in law can, talk about it. If there is a conflict between Shastra and the written law, which is based on Dharma, then Dharma prevails, which is a logical conclusion. So everything was for righteousness. As long as you are right in your conduct, in your thinking, you will never go wrong, and nothing will go wrong. The former CEC will stand by it, that going by the correctness of the whole thing in his role and rule and his responsibility, you can stand up anywhere and face anyone in the world, any judiciary, any Supreme Court. So while you can frame laws, you can have a system, you need an organization for it. You cannot have no judges and you still have laws, right? So how did he organize it? The king was the final appellate authority. Everything you can appeal to him only. There were 3 dharmastas called the judges, the ministerial or the cabinet sort of level. That was their status. And you see his priority in terms of the 3 judges being appointed. The first one is for every border village there were 3 judges, which means he understood the requirement of border village and what is the sensitivity of that village being in the border. If we had done that, there are very many cases in the villages in our Pakistan based, especially in the Rajasthan borders, where there is a demographic change. You may have heard about the place we went, Dwaraka, Bet Dwaraka. Bet Dwaraka was illegally occupied by people coming across in boats. There was no stopping them. Now evictions and everything has happened. So that is the implication of the border village. Then the whole state was of course organized into headquarters of 10 villages, 400 villages and 800 villages, which perhaps was talking about a capital city. Now the appointment which oversaw all this was what is called the Samhartar and the Pradeshtar. They were like, you can call it the governor or the chief minister of a province. So maybe there was a system existing where what the judge gave the judgment was not satisfying to the people. They could have gone to the Samarthar for appeal. We have no records of these things, so we cannot say with definitive thing whether that existed or not. That's why I said the bench system was existing, not existing, because border village 3 judges, will they sit to adjudicate on a case? Maybe, maybe not. But there are exceptions to it, where the 3 judges sat to decide. I will just come to that in the next slide. Where the gradation of courts, do you have a judicial court, a high court and Supreme Court in that manner? There is no records to say that. It is not that the Janapada Samdhi went to Dronamukha judge to say. All these judges were equal. He also stated laws under these 17 or 18 heads. If you see, all these are related to personal matters. I am not going into each one of them or anything. It is just for your knowledge sake, because you can, do a research on these things separately. Laws which are transactional in nature. If you notice, there are no laws to say that I am an illegal immigrant. What should be done? There is no question of any illegal immigrant. And if there is somebody acting against the interests of the state, against the king, on any of the offence that he would have committed, it is just elimination. There is no questions asked. Like, you won't like to take a terrorist to a judge or a court, right? It is better to eliminate than to think of a process of law. Oh, I am speaking as an army man, right? Please pardon me. Okay, how was the administration of justice? A few points. The term Vyavahara comes into play even in Dharma Shastra. That is basically a transaction between two or more people which created a conflict. That conflict had to be addressed by the judge. That had to be done based on the evidence, based on oral or written or whatever it is. He laid down priority of cases as far as the judges are concerned. Amongst all the cases, affairs of the temples took priority. Similarly, hermitages, heretics, Brahmins. And Brahmins is qualified by saying, learned in Vedas. Not that I am from a Brahmin family, so please take up my case. No. I should be a learned scholar. Minors, old and sick persons. I said about the exception to the bench system, and I also said about role or rule-based society, right? In that rule, when you said you have 4 stages of life, if somebody wants to be a sannyasi, he had to take permission, and the 3 judges sat together to give him the permission. And what are we following today? Without a written law, if somebody wants to be a sannyasi, the matams consult the family, take permission of the family before allowing him into the sannyasi, stage, right? Similarly, any aspect to do with women, to do with all these cases, the bench system used to function. He laid down the laws of procedure and laws of evidence. This is also applicable, or when you go to the last slide, last bullet, judges and clerks are punished for committing errors and malpractices. If you do not hear the evidence in the manner it is given, then action is taken against the judge. If the clerk writing the record of the procedure, he commits an error, whether intentionally or otherwise, he will be punished. So that was the sword which is hanging with every appointment who had a responsibility. And he was very ruthless in this. That was the character of Kautilya, a ruthless implementation of the rules. That's what he also says, that the Ausana Shastra is a little harsh. The Brahaspati, what he wrote, is a little softer. And Dharma Shastra is all about ethics and self-cleaning or prayashchittam. It doesn't, talk more about punishment and all that, retribution and things like that. So, of course, society has changed. We can say that, those are not applicable, but then the concepts and foundations are applied. So motor cognizance was also available, which you can see is also happening in today's life. Again, the so motor cognizance was taken on all these aspects where the priority of cases were listed. Not on every aspect. anything which affects the society has to be taken up in the suo motu form. Very few judges do it now. So, just a food for thought, when I talked about the constitution and how it is enshrined in it, so that you can create the social order within the ambit of the constitution, you don't have to go anywhere out. Article 38, it must strive to create a social structure where justice informs all nations, all institutions, national institutions. Institutional authority is prime. It must be available, it must be there. Minimizing inequalities is Article 38.2, but they are all non-justiciable because it is in the directive principles. It is said that yes, you must do it. We follow foreign policy based on the directive principles of Article 51, promote international peace and security. We are following it, right? It's nothing new that any government does it. 51A is fundamental duties of the citizens. Arthashastra enforced duties. Here we put it in the directive principles. We could have put it in the constitution itself as a punishable offense if we do not follow certain rules. We have certain small incidences, minor offenses which can be dealt with. Just a word about law as an army officer commanding troops. I had to learn military law and how to administer it, because there military law is justice delivered quickly, but justice followed as per the procedure. The army rules talk about procedures. If you find some court-martial cases going against the verdict, then it is non-following the procedure rather than the evidence and the, what is the punishment given. So, in our military law, I had the powers to sentence somebody to death. But that is for particular, offense under section 34, where it is mutiny or, running away from enemy and all those things. But that was the level at which the military law is placed, which is an act of parliament. So, with that, I do come to the end, and this is the last sutra, which I always like a lot because I use it for, my own self also. Sukhasya moolam dharmaha, dharmasya moolam arthaha, arthasya moolam rajyam, rajyasya moolam indriya jayaha, indriya jayasya moolam vinayaha, vinayasya moolam vriddhopaseva. Now, vriddhopaseva in a, just literally meaning means taking care of the elders or the old people. Kautilya says it is not only that. When you are in the presence of elders, you will learn a lot. They have knowledge, they have experience. That is why Vriddhopaseva is important. Not as just a karmic duty. Because ultimately he says knowledge is very important, and as much knowledge as you can acquire, continue to do so. You can read this sutra in the backward line also. Indriya jayasya moolam vinaya. Vinaya is obtained after you conquer your pancha indriyam, right? Which is a very difficult thing. We can do it in small measures, but that is not the end of it. You can have vinayam as a character. You can develop that character of vinayam, even if you don't have it. You can still have your desires, watch TV or buy things which you don't require. So all that thing is there. So with that, sir, I come to an end of my talk, and I hope I have done some justice to the title of the talk, and I believe there is somebody from the judiciary who is there, who can help me in anything that has to be said, any questions. I would love to answer it. Thank you.
Anyone would like to have some clarification or question?
What is the reference? Yes. Yes. No. The layout of the village, the conduct of the people, the activity they will do. Yes, maintenance of the village. Everything is given in detail. There's so much in detail that, it becomes a little boring at one point of time, to an extent that, yes, do we need to follow so much of it? Right? So when you see a layout of a temple, everything is measured, right, to the last centimeter. So that sort of a layout is also given on how the capital city is to be organized. What is everybody got to do? So that is very nicely written. So there's no dispute on any point which can come up as a clarification. Should I do this? It's not given here and all. No, everything is clarified. So that's the beauty of the Arthashastra, which I must mention one point, that the first, the start of the Arthashastra, when he says, Namashukra Brahaspatibhyam, when I gave my thesis write-up to the Piriva, now, he opened it and he saw this, and his first remark was, oh good, he is keeping both of them happy. Shukracharya as well as Brahaspati. He said so in that time. It continues even now. Politics has always been a threat, especially when you see the framing and reframing of laws based on a government of the state. There is one particular law on, trespassing and, somebody grabs your land. There are many states which have got specific provisions and specific, attention to this. Tamil Nadu does not have it. It is removed it by legislature. Right? It comes into a civic case sense, unless you have the clout to, go and remove the encroachment.
Thank.
Correct. So, like I said, directive, you're, exercising your franchise. I mean, the right to vote must be exercised. There is lack of awareness or lack of involvement. What am I going to do if somebody gets elected or not? That's the attitude, right? So, yes, it can be made into an offense if you don't. But then you'll come up with so many reasons that, it becomes... I agree. So this will come only with the maturity of in the society per se. Generations have to be told what is right and what must be done without hesitation. As parents, I feel we do hesitate to tell our children on very many aspects. I guess we must start doing it. So military law specifies the offences, and generally we found that only when you commit those offences you are punished. For example, somebody goes and overstays leave, right, for whatever reason. I, as a commanding officer, used to give him one additional chance that next time don't do it, But next time when you do it, I will give you that mandatory 7 days rigorous imprisonment or 14 days or whatever, depending on this thing. But civil offense takes precedence. In the sense, not precedence, but it is applicable even if you are a military personnel. But there is one section in the IPC which says you need to take permission of when you want to, try somebody, or which is the government official or the military official or whatever it is. IPC 45 or something was there that time, but now it is a different code of rules. So it was there, and then you have to prove the evidence to say that yes, he went against the civil code and law. But let's say they take an example of marrying two persons. It is given in the military law as well. It is there in civil law also, I think, but may or may not be implemented. So that's what is my understanding of the civil law as well as the. For example, if he commits a crime in, let's say, in the road, right? The rules there will play into effect. He can get arrested, and then he can be tried. Not an issue. Supreme Court is supreme now. No, so it is the the fundamental practice and the concept which was prevailing is being taken over now. I am going to give a talk in Shastra University on Constitution, how is it linked to Dharma Shastra and our lineage, right? So in that I want to pose a question to the students. You take the Uniform Civil Code. What is the problem in implementing the Uniform Civil Code? It's not, somebody's personal law, somebody's, what is given in their religion and all that. Yes, those are points to be addressed. But fundamentally, Uniform Civil Code, as per our Dharma Shastras, pluralism was followed. There is equality of belief system and all that. So, how can you have a Uniform Civil Code? But Kautilya says, if it is in the interest of society and if it disrupts the society, then you will have a Uniform Civil Code. So this is the conflict which the Parliament has to address. So whatever is given is applicable. Like I told you about foreign affairs and things that we follow. It's all given there. The only aspect is, for example, taxation, you are the expert there. There is one, Mrs. Saraswati, who's done Arthashastra PhD research on taxation. We can follow some of the aspects of the taxation rules. But there are certain necessities in today's life which will, necessitate something more or less than what was given there. That is a very simple rule. 1/6 of your produce you will give it to the king. But here you are hiding even that 1/6. And so you need rules and regulations to extract that from the individual.
Thank you for your very enlightening and excellent lecture, sir. We enjoyed every part of your talk. And one of the best presentations on Arthashastra, which we have seen in this hall after a long time. On behalf of the Kuppaswamy Sastry Research Institute and the Sanskrit Academy, I request Dr. Sita Sundaram Madam to give a small token of appreciation. The condensed Ramayana, Mahabharata and Bhagavatam with English translation, and the lectures on Ramayana by Right Honorable Srinivas Sastry. Thank you very much, sir. Now I request Dr. K. Srinivasan, President of the Sanskrit Academy, to propose a vote of thanks.
After beautiful, nice talks, we have the ritual of vote of thanks that I have to perform, and I have come here. And Udyoga Parva, Mahabharata states, Shrotavyam khalu vriddhanam. You have to hear the words of elders. As he said, Vriddopaseva. That is Indriya Jayaha, Vinayaha, and Vinayasya Muram Vriddopaseva. Only by serving the Vriddhas. Vriddhas are the elderly people who have got their anubhava and their knowledge, and you will be able to get it. But Udyoga Parva adds one thing which perhaps Kautilya might have forgotten. Natvevatu ati vriddhanam. Super seniors don't hear at all, because te kalu balaha mataha. They just go back to their old, what is called the childhood days. So, I don't know, should I consider myself as super senior or mere senior? Anyway, since I am performing the ritual, I start with this. And Kautilya has taken dharma, which he himself has stated, dharmic state. Dharma has the state, and the king himself had to think of dharma. While giving the Sukhanasa Upadesa, at the end of the Sukhanasa Upadesa, what is called, the king who has established his kingdom well, one who has established his power, Trailokya Darsiva Siddhadesho Bhavati, Aruda Pratapo hi Raja, Trailokya Darsiva Siddhadesho Bhavati. Only a king who has established his power, who had shown, he becomes Trailokya Darsi, just like a Dirgha Darsi, his edict will go everywhere. And Chanakya himself says, of the four Pramanas, Shruti, Smriti, Achara, and Rajagnya, Rajagnya takes the precedence over everything. And not only that, even according to Bhishma, Sarvagamanam Achara Pradhamam Parikalpate. Achara is considered to be the supreme. Even in jurisprudence, Achara, the convention, that takes precedence over written laws, because written laws are what is called enacted over convention laws. So he has said initially, that is Chatushtayi, that is four types of knowledge. Trayi, Varta, Dandaniti, Anvikshiki, and Manavaha, that is the people who follow Dharmasastra, they don't want Anvikshiki because they don't want laws to be tested or known or analyzed, etc. at all. Because we should not apply our brain, we have to simply follow it. But Kautilya says, Anvikshiki, only when there is a conflict, a king who is conversant with that, he alone will be able to decide what is the correct one. And the knowledge of Anvikshiki, knowledge of logic is very important. He starts with that. Logic is very important. Without the knowledge of logic, a king cannot proceed with that. So he proceeds. And the same thing is applied. I am not going into law, which is his, what is called Chanakya's Arthasastra, which is his specialized area. But this is being applied in our literature itself. Say, when you take Dharma Vijaya is a Champu literature produced in the 18th century by Nalladhwari or Bhuminatha Kavi in the court of Maratha king. He says, in that particular position, he says, with dharmic, what is called, because there is a Chenji, it was taken over by hostile forces, and the Chenji king has come to Maratha king. He has what is called taken refuge. But the Maratha king says, there is no conflict at all between me and the Chenji king. How can I directly go to the Chenji king against him and then fight with him and then restore the kingdom to you? Because unless there is direct conflict between him and me, I cannot fight with him. So, they did not want to what is called, they wanted some sort of a conflict or some sort of a ruse or some reason for them to fight. Otherwise, they cannot do it. Say, for example, what does Bhavabhuti says? Sneham dayancha saukyamcha yadiva janakimapi aradhanaya lokasya munchato nasti me vyata. I have to please my subjects. That's my supreme duty. And in order to please the subjects, I just do not renounce, I am even prepared to renounce Sita. That is the Bhavabhuti Bhavabhuti's Uttaramacharita starts with what is called abandoning Sita to the forest, but it is not simply abandoning Sita, but abandoning Sita for the sake of getting the acceptance of the people. That becomes the more important thing. That's how they proceeded. In every Sanskrit literature, if you go, you can take that. And one thing with this point, and just will switch over to my duty. Say for example, what is the state? He said 7 Raja, Saptangam, Rajya Muchyate and all those things. And the state, that is the territory, Bhutapurva and Abhutapurva. The territory can be what is called, the king can create a city either over the existing, that is abandoned cities, or what is called desolate places. And in the, that is the population can be Paradesapavahanena, by bringing people, specialists from other countries. So the nation is, the Chanakya does not define nation as consisting of one group of people speaking one language, following one religion, etc. It is multitude of the people. From the very base itself, he starts with that. Okay, this is how the pluralism and multitudinalism and all those things have come into existence, and he has presented how that is our pluralism is what is the present day pluralism also is what is called taking roots in Chanakyas, and how the secularism and all those things have taken roots there. It is essentially ingrained not only in Chanakya but in our DNA also, slowly through him. And very thank you, beautiful Major General Gopalakrishnan sir, for presenting such a beautiful lecture, and thank you very much. And I thank all the endowment makers also, and I thank you audience. Thank you very much.